are you going to fund? No.
So we've gotten some common questions that I'm going to address that have more to do with the growth of our district with respect to tax abatements, and some other questions about what the district can do to stop development. This is a hot topic. So if we simply pose the question, doesn't the district promote growth by approving TIFs with developers? TIF meaning a tax increment financing, which is an economic development tool that can be used by both political subdivisions like a township or a city and a developer to develop a piece of property and get the needed public infrastructure like roads, sewers, curbs, sidewalks, water lines, those sorts of things. The first point is the school has no legal authority to stop a township or a municipality from enacting a TIF of any sort, even a residential TIF. That being said, we have made it very, very clear to our township, county, and municipal partners that residential TIFs are not good practice for the district, because the same land that is getting abated, or some of our tax dollars are being diverted into a TIF fund, ends up producing students from those same homes.
Before you go to the next point, it's important to understand that that TIF does not mean that whoever's getting that doesn't pay that. It just goes where?
It gets diverted, and that's why I use that that wording. It gets diverted to what's called a TIF service fund. So assume an owner lives in a TIFed area or a business. That owner or that business are still going to send 100% of the taxes that were calculated on that property to the county auditor. They have to pay everything like they normally would, the TIF notwithstanding. What happens is the agreement with the township or the municipality that has the authority legally over that TIFed parcel peels off the portion of it that is abated into a TIF service fund. The TIF service fund is then used to support the capital dollars needed for roads, sidewalks, sewers, water lines, and all of the public infrastructure that serves either the TIFed area, and it has to have a proximity to the TIFed area, but it can expand to other areas as long as the benefit is for those parcels that are TIFed. And the public benefit also can be there for when a road is expanded, or if a TIFed parcel has to expand water lines, a quarter of a mile, obviously as that water line goes by other properties. Those properties could tap in. That's why it's called public infrastructure improvements. But yes, the owners that own the parcels that are TIFed still pay the same amount. It just gets diverted, a portion of it. Schools actually, when it comes to TIFs, if the TIF doesn't abate or divert into the TIF service fund more than 75% of the taxes that are otherwise owed, and for more, I should say, than 10 years, schools actually have absolutely no say whatsoever in that legislation. And a township or a county or a city can simply inform a school district that they are using this tax incentive tool with a developer to develop a particular parcels, or TIF district.
State law.
State law.
How old is that law?
I don't know off the top of my head. I know it's been around as long as I've been a treasurer, and I'm old, so that's at least 20 years. So it's been there.
In some cases, we've actually been able to negotiate, even though it's been a 75-10, we've been able to negotiate payments in kind.
That's correct. And that is what we're going to talk about. You either work very, very diligently to still negotiate payments in kind, or the next bullet point is really what we shoot for. If we look at the majority of the TIFs in our district, they are non-school. What non-school means is that arrangement I talked about, where the tax dollars that the owners of TIFed parcels peel off into a service fund, none of our dollars get peeled off into the service fund. We get everything we're supposed to get. If we look by and large at the TIFs we have in this district, the majority of them are 100% non-school. I'll mention probably the biggest granddaddy of them all TIF, Polaris. The original Polaris TIF from the mid-90s, 100% non-school. We get everything we're supposed to get from that mall.
And these are all listed on our website under the 5-year forecast.
That's correct. That's correct. And I'm going to update, because what Mr. O'Brien noted, I'm going to update that in these TIFs too, where we have a compensation agreement, what do we get for the compensation agreement? What is it? Is it in some kinds, it's contributions in lieu of? For example, the most recent TIF that we would have approved was a 75% 15-year TIF for the property at the intersection of 23 and Shanahan Road. We got about $800,000 worth of contributions in kind. That will be the expansion of a sewer line from that development to Shanahan Middle School, and then a complete redevelopment and rerouting of a service road that is on, I guess, what would be the westernmost portion of Shanahan. It was about $800,000, Mr. Gordon? I think that was about it, somewhere in that neighborhood. So, the district understands that TIFs can be used, especially when we're talking commercial and industrial growth, as a tool that will expand the commercial industrial tax base. So we can't just simply view a TIF as no way, never, it can't ever happen. Again, if it's 75 and 10, there's nothing we can do anyway. But where we work with our partners and different developments are commercial or industrial, we can talk about how it may benefit the community at large to expand roads, sewers, and especially when you're talking commercial and industrial development, it's not going to directly impact student growth. In fact,
back to the orange TIF, Mr. O'Brien, a year ago, Trustee Faust came and talked to us about all the things the TIF was paying for that pointed to the safety of our kids in that educational complex area, that getting to school safer, walking paths, and then the other one, Bale Canyon.
Bale Canyon
Bale
Road.
correct.
Canyon, Shanahan Road, all of that, yeah.
those were the public infrastructure improvements that the township would then use with the funds that are diverted into the TIF service fund. So again, we work to find common ground with our townships that benefit the entire community and that don't create growth for the district in terms of TIFing or abating a property and still getting students from those same properties.
So now you've got commercial industrial, you've got residential, you've got mixed use in the middle, okay? We have typically tried, and I think successfully, Evans Farms is an example.
That's correct.
We have TIFed the commercial portion.
That's correct.
Not the residential.
That's right.
Okay, and that's an important distinction, because there are people out there that say, oh, you TIFed Evans, all those homes. We did not. We TIFed the commercial portion, not the residential portion.
That's exactly right. We have a few residential TIFs in our district. I researched, I don't know that I found every one of them, but I know I found at least 3, and every last one of them were non-school TIFs. That means that, okay, the residences that are there, and those homeowners pay a full tax bill.
Yep.
It's just the portion that belongs to, if it's non-school, the portions that belong to other entities, and I believe these are all in the southeast corner of the city of Delaware, but I think the TIF belongs to the county, if my memory serves me correctly. Those homeowners still pay a full tax bill. It's just that a portion of their tax bill gets peeled off into a TIF service fund for public infrastructure. We still, as a school, get every penny of the tax revenue that we are supposed to get from those residential TIFs.
So say this again, not one home, single-family home in Evans Farm is paying less than their fair share, I hate that word, less than what they would have normally paid. There's nothing's been done to remove that. It is a burden. Taxes are a burden. Nothing's been done to remove that.
That's correct. What happens is and the homeowner would never see that, a portion of, and this is the Evans residential TIF that's not the Evans Farm along Lewis Center. It's the one more up towards, I forget a couple of the other subdivisions names. But yes, all of those homeowners are going to pay a full tax bill. Behind the scenes, they don't see it. Part of that tax bill gets peeled off and put into the TIF fund. That's correct.
But for our purposes, we're made whole in that.
We get 100%. That's correct. Well, there's nothing to be made whole. We don't lose anything.
Right.
Yeah, I know, but same concept. That's
Right.
correct.
And bottom line, if there's a big tract of land and someone buys it and puts it in a neighborhood, what can we really do to prevent that?
Perfect segue.
Hey,
What can we do to slow
Hey,
development?
Mr. Jenkins, just before that, Mr. Jenkins had mentioned collaboration and partnerships with townships in our school. So probably about 2 months ago, the board received a 14-day notice for a TIF project from one of our townships, and we looked at that and went back to, because originally it did have a TIF on a residential area, and Mr. Jenkins and I worked with the township trustees to make sure that that was not part of the TIFed area.
They took the residences out, or the plots that could have been, the tracts of land that were zoned residential, which is a perfect lead-in, Ms. Schreiber, to the next question. What can schools do to slow development? There's no other way to put it other than schools simply do not have any legal authority whatsoever over the planning and zoning process. Nor does the district have any authority regarding how residential development ebbs and flows in this district. I like to say it as we get a seat at the table. We get to talk to the township, the county, or the city, but push comes to shove, we simply don't make those rules, we don't make those laws any more than they make educational policy. In general, zoning drives what development can and can't happen. Large tracts of this district are already zoned in such a way, because people are selling agricultural land that probably already has a farm residential type of zoning, possibly in some cases a residential type of zoning, that because of laws and planning and zoning set up by our township partners, our city partners, that's how they say the land is to be used. So if someone gets a piece of land that is zoned in such a way that it's very, very easy to plat it out and turn it into existing homes, and they can meet all the requirements of lot size, setback,
Comprehensive.
whatever the comprehensive plan is for that plot, what actually happens is, there's a deliberative process where if maybe a developer wants to tweak or ask for something a little different, but in general, even that process for a developer, even though we may know they want to take a 400-acre farm field and turn it into 600 homes, the township, the city, the municipalities have to follow their own zoning code. They can't just decide in some arbitrary and capricious manner to tell them, well, you're going to bring in 500 homes and we don't like that.
Or else.
So they can be sued. In fact, developers have at times, and this isn't to give our developer friends a bad rap, it's just, hey, we should be treated by the same rules. If they have purchased, a big chunk of farmland, and then they own it legally, and they develop a plan that follows zoning code, it's just simply not good business practice for the people who make the rules to turn around and say those rules, though they don't apply to you, they're something different.
It's great business practice for lawyers, though.
It is. Exactly right. I want to stress that we have good working relationship with local township and municipal officials, and we continue to communicate and work hard. But there's a lot of factors that go into the process of just simply saying, why can't the school just stop all of this growth so that we don't have all of these kids? I like to say it this way. However a child gets in our district, if they're a legal resident of this district, we're going to educate them. That's our job. So the final question is can the developers or have the developers tried to do their part? And the answer is yes. It's certainly not as if they're just sitting back and greedily laughing all the way to the bank. Once again, Though I have to be careful, we could ask this question, can the school make the developers do their part with some type of impact fee? Schools have absolutely no legal authority whatsoever to assess what's called an impact fee. In fact, impact fees are exclusively the domain of cities and municipalities. Townships can't even do it. The Supreme Court struck it down in 2012. What is an impact fee? It's exactly what it sounds like. A city can say to a developer, when you develop this 200 acres and turn it into 150 homes, there will be a $2,000 fee per roof that you, developer, have to pay to the municipality. It's just something that's a tool in a municipal or city's toolbox. It's not in a township's toolbox, it's not in a county's toolbox, and it's not in a school's toolbox. We simply can't
Different
use
from
it.
other states. Some states, they do that.
Absolutely.
So if someone comes from another state who's used to the district saying, we're not letting you build this, that's not the way it rolls in Ohio.
That is exactly correct. We are creatures of statute, and there simply has to be overt authority, overt, explicit authority for us as a government entity to do anything we do, and there simply doesn't exist any authority for a school district anywhere in the state of Ohio to say, okay, developer, you can develop there, but you got to pay us $2,000 for every student that you expect is going to live in those homes. You just can't.
And no one wants to pay an impact fee. They want the next person to pay the impact.
Right.
Correct. Correct.
And this doesn't mean that we don't press our position during these discussions, and it doesn't mean that we can't share the impact when we talk to the stakeholders in this. It just means when push comes to shove.
That's correct. And yet, now I'm going to say, well, what have developers done? So I actually did a little bit of research today because I got a nice spreadsheet from Mr. Gordon in the business department. We've got 3 schools listed there, Shale Meadows, Peach Blow, 2 schools, I'm a good counter. Shale Meadows, Peach Blow, I had Cheshire in my mind. I actually grabbed a spreadsheet today, and I'm going to list all of the schools that we got because of donated land from a developer. Hyatt's Middle School and Liberty Tree, that combined parcel. Peach Blow Crossing, Cheshire Elementary, Glen Oak, Indian Springs, Johnny Cake Corners, Oak Creek, Olentangy Meadows, Scioto Ridge, Tyler Run, and Walnut Creek. All of those parcels where our main school sits were in one way or another donated by a developer. So, you know, I guess my own personal opinion would be I would feel like that's not developers just sitting back and doing nothing. That is a type of, in some ways, anticipation of the impact, putting 200 or 300 homes in Alum Creek. If it's even only 200 or 300, that's a pretty big subdivision, and the impact that it would have on making sure that there's land there for the school to grow.
I also think it validates the concept of neighborhood schools.
Correct. I mean, in some ways, it's a wise practice for a developer to develop an area where people want to live close to Columbus, close to lots of jobs, and as we talked earlier with the size of our schools, they're large, but they're not so large that they don't still, and that's exactly how we design them, they don't still function as neighborhood schools. We can be a very, very large district and still feel small.
And we've bought land, Mr. O'Brien, you'll know, I don't know what you've done in the past, like you saw things coming and you said
Not me, it was before me.
Yeah, I mean.
We've only bought land twice in 13 years, maybe?
Yeah, but outside of buying land to build a school, the district cannot be in the business of saying, we're going to get this land and just hold it, so they don't build. We can't do that.
Well, you know, and if we did, I would think that someone would ask if that's a wise and efficient use of our tax dollars.
We're not in the land speculation
We're not
business.
prospectors or speculators. That's exactly right. And, you know, the law cleared it up pretty quickly that schools used to be, it's only been in the last 3 to 4 years, that schools just carte blanche could exempt property. Prior to about 2017 or 18, there was a Supreme Court decision that kind of made this a final say. But even prior to that, if schools held a piece of land or owned a piece of property but didn't use it for a tax-exempt purpose, it was not automatically exempted. Perfect example. Some schools would hold property and they would farm it or lease it for someone to farm. While that was being leased and while it was being farmed, it was not necessarily treated as exempt property. Now, the Supreme Court has ruled the school district's interest, just a matter of course that they hold the land, is exempt.
And then once you own it, it's not easy to dispose of it because it's a whole different process to dispose of buildings and land.
Correct.
In terms of, you have to offer it to charter schools first before you can put it on the market. And
That's correct.
you may not even get market value for it if you dispose of it.
That is correct. We, as a public entity, everything we do would have to be on an auction type of basis. And then, again, only after we've offered to charter schools. And it's just not the most efficient way to get rid of land.